Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. We're going to be looking at a ladder game today. That's right, the cast has come around once again. This one is going to be between Mountain and Thomas Hyatt, something like that. They're both 1800-ish players. They are both Cybern. They're on the left and right sides of Twin Rivers, and we are going to watch this for learning purposes. I did not pick this game because it is generally more exciting than any of the others I have seen. I picked it because Twin Rivers is a map that sometimes I have a little trouble with the build order on. People ask me a lot, how do you improve? Supreme Commander is a very difficult game. What do I do to get better? The answer is watch your own replays, watch the replays of people who are better than you, in this case 600 rank higher than I am, and basically just copy what they do. So today we're going to be doing that. We're going to look at Mountain first and just click on his name here in the window, and we'll be able to see exactly what he has queued. So we've got an engineer out to assist the ACU in building the things after it has built a mass extractor. Actually, I'm wrong. It's queued to build the mass extractor, go over here, get manual reclaim, and then build 2 more mass extractors, followed by moving to the expansion. Then we have 2 scouts, 2 hunters. Scouts first for some weird reason. I would usually build the hunters first because the scouts are faster than the hunters, and by the time the hunters have run halfway across the map, the scouts will catch up. But that is the choice of a player of a much higher rank than I, so I will not complain too much. And then on the ACU, we have got 3 power generators, the last mass extractor, 5 more power generators, then a land factory. Are you sure you want a land factory? You didn't want an air factory? I'm confused about this. We'll see if he redoes it in just a memento. But it appears that he has 8 P-gens, then a land factory, then 3 P-gens, then an air factory. Let's go look at the other side and see what is happening over there, and then we will come back. More engineers queued, manual reclaim in the back, moving out to get the mexes. Good. On this side, Thomas has gone first land as well. He does have a Mantis out after 4 engineers, which have gone out manual reclaim, mexes manual reclaim. We've got streak of manual reclaim right here, missed 1 rock, 2 mexes, and land factory. Engineer going mex, land factory, lots of manual reclaim for that one. And then air factory after 7 P-gens, which is the typical amount that you need to run that without stalling. His eco is looking good. What I am seeing here is a hyper-aggressive build versus a conservative build, and it does appear that Mountain has swapped that land factory and air factory around so that he has air. But remember that he does have an engineer assisting his air factory, so even though he went for 1 more P-gen than his opponent did, his air factory will be only a couple of seconds behind. Scout first, not a bomber. Red will be totally fine. So we have hyper aggression versus slow and steady expansion. And right now Thomas is far ahead on mass income, probably due to a small amount of reclaim. But he does have quite a few mexes. He's going to have factories in his expansions so that his engineers do not die very easily. Or if they do die, he can build some to replace them without having to send them halfway across the map. We've got Mantis out. Now, the Mantis are more expensive, but they pretty much straight up kill hunters. And you see this one picked up the mole and that hunter. This hunter is going to be a little late to the party. This engineer has already finished cleaning up all of the manual reclaim here. If it does die, it is not particularly going to matter as it's too late into the game. Twin Rivers is kind of a bad map to go early aggression on. 1 engineer dead. There's only 2 lanes of approach. There's only so much room for a run by. Once you get a large quantity of units, you can force your opponent into misplacing his units. You can get units around the backside. You can do drops. You can do all kinds of nasty things. Twin Rivers is a map with a fair bit of variance as far as 1 versus 1 play goes, but it is very difficult to pull off good early aggression. So up here, somebody reclaim that. I would assume it is red since it is closer to red's side. Thomas has not gone up and reclaimed this in the center. 130 plus 2, 250 brings you to 420, maybe 30 reclaim or so right there in the middle. Enough to definitely make a difference. That is, what, half of a T2 mass extractor upgrade? If I am not totally mistaken. Let's actually price that out and find out. Oh my goodness, there's a power stall. A wild power stall in its natural habitat. That is exactly half of a T2 mass extractor. So It would appear that he has gotten a little overambitious with his land factories, and he's building that with an engineer, which is doubling down, actually 50% increase on the power expenditure for his land factory build. Something interesting that you need to realize is that building a factory takes about double the power income of running a factory. You can see this is burning 21, that is burning 50. So if you are slightly power stalling while you're building the factories, if you're like -10, -20, but you've got some storage and you're not actually totally stalled, it's a good thing to build another factory, because once you're done building the factory, then you'll go right back up to being exactly balanced on power. However, if you are building and you're 100 in the hole, you're not just going to snap back from that, and you definitely need to be getting some engineers on the power building train. You can see he actually upped the number to 3 engineers building power. And it will get the job done and get him above the yellow zone. So a little bit of a problem there. This is going to put him slightly behind in score, but he is making close to the same amount of mass as red, I think. Red is at 43 rock solid income. I may have spoken too soon. We got 37, so there actually is about a 6 mass differential there, but the difference is not enough to make a tremendous difference. So we've got, let's see, 5, 6, 7 land factories on this side. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plans for Mountain. So this is going to be a T1 spam fest. Doesn't look like we're going to be getting any early T3 rushes. You got to be able to control your expansions on Twin Rivers. If you try to do the tech thing without any units to cover your butt, you're probably going to have a little bit of a bad time. Anytime you lose one of these sides, it just takes a lot of time to get those mexes back under your control, especially if they get into the rear section, and then you have to devote units back there to that. I am actually going to interject here, and I'm going to turn up the sound volume just a little bit. That was repetitively redundant, but I shall say it anyway, because that is incredibly quiet. Alright, on this side, I see a massive amount of walls planned. Walls for days, and you know what? That's actually a good thing. Because if you've got vast hordes of T1 approaching, which I realize that those are not exactly vast hordes, but there are quite a few mantis on the way, looking like little bugs crawling across the surface of the ground. If you've got a lot of T1 incoming, walls are a good idea, because it screws up the pathfinding of the incoming units, forces them to bottleneck, to slow down, to re-maneuver, and it in general works in your favor. It can buy you the time necessary to build up some defenses in a certain area or get your units to that area, and walls are super cheap. Once you get up to the T2 stage, you know, there's usually a bunch of roving engineers that can reclaim your walls. There's generally other issues, and then definitely once you get to T3, walls are probably starting to lose their effectiveness to certain units that are coming through, but in all portions of the game, walls are going to be a thorn in the side of your opponent, and if you so desire, you can build them. My favorite is when I'm Aeon. Oh, look at the run by. My favorite is when I'm Aeon and I have Harbingers, and people do not realize that you can reclaim the walls with Harbingers, because Harbingers reclaim. So they try to build walls, and then I walk up with my Harbingers and just reclaim them and walk right through, and I can't help but just laugh a little bit inside at the hilarity of the entire situation. Bombers harassing the ever-living crap out of this group of mantis, multiple T1 anti-air going down in that sector to try and deal with those, but not before the loss of a few too many mantis. Mountain, between having his ACU in the right spot, checking the gap in the walls, bringing his units over, and harassing with bombers that are now going to get shot down by a combination of T1 anti-air and a few interceptors. He was able to hold the pass and keep his shiny mechs. He is at 56 mass income versus 47, mostly due to the fact that there was a raid back here. There are mantis moving into the rear, which is exactly what I said just a few moments ago is a terrible, terrible thing to have happen. Those mantis are going to kill off the engineers and then, for some reason, fire at the air factory. I would definitely be focus firing the Hydro at this particular moment in time, because the Hydro is a hard loss to take at any stage in the game. But no, those are just going to randomly target some of the incoming mantis and then die horribly after killing a little bit of build power. What could have been a very critical blow, it was just mediocre. You know, that sometimes things just don't work out the way you wanted them to. T1 units clumping up over here for Mountain as I pause the game unintentionally with a wild swing of the mouse. You can tell that I'm a little bit rusty on this one. Thomas, still no upgrades on the ACU. It appears that Mountain is also on an unupgraded commander. We are at 10 minutes into the game, which is prime time for either T2 or a gun comm. Does not look like Blue has got T2, but Red most certainly does. A T2 mech is peering back at us from the back of the base. And there is a T2 factory running wide open, pumping out rhinos. And let's take a count on the map. We have 3 so far, which is plenty to deal with T1, but if you get it close to the ACU, that is few enough that you could theoretically hit them all with a single overcharge. If your opponent is dumb enough to clump them all up in one spot. So we're going to start seeing the game shift into the higher tiers. This looks like a T2 mass extractor over here, and another one upgrading, so it looks like Thomas is slightly out-ecoing his opponent, at least with the presence of T2 mass extractors. The income in and of itself is still pretty well dead even between the two. Got our first major engagement here. Rhinos are going to make up the difference there, able to engage from a little bit further range and be a little bit tougher than their T1 counterparts, killing many Mantis as long as friendly Mantis are there to meet shield. Mountain wading into the fight with his ACU. Even unupgraded ACUs, of course, are worth about 20 T1 units, so add them into any fight that looks like you got about even numbers and you should win with overwhelming amounts. So on the right hand side we have another attempted run by, which is not very great in number, but greater in number than the opposition. If you would have just run through that, you might have been able to do something, but there are units over on this side with which to deal with that incursion. That is something that typically I fail at. I do not put enough units off to the side in some cases to prevent run-bys like that, and they end up screwing me over in the long term. Engineer dutifully building walls directly across to the pass to try to screw up the pathfinding on the right-hand side, the same as it has been destroyed on the left, and it looks like we do have a couple of T2 units over in the mix for Thomas. Let's take a count. There are 4. They are building from a medium-ish assisted T2 factory. Mountain, on the other hand, has a total of 6. Only 2 more. But he does have about the same, maybe a couple more engineers on his factory. So these guys are going to continue running dead even. Mountain is about 6 mass behind. That may have been reclaimed, but he has gotten a hold of one of the islands, so I would expect him to zoom ahead shortly. Thomas, still no upgrade on that ACU. The same for Mountain. How close are these guys running on power? Thomas, plus 200, definitely could afford a gun upgrade. Balanced, he is positive when he's not reclaiming, but he is reclaiming a fair bit. So Mountain is running the ideal economy at this particular moment in time. Lots of reclaim going down from these attack moved engineers. So let's see how these guys handle this. Will there be another tech jump, or are they just going to try to outmaneuver each other? We've got 2 additional factories, 2 support T2 factories, totaling 9 rhinos on the left side. And then on the right we have 11. So still slightly ahead, but losing ground, I think. So, support factories, because I still encounter people who don't know this. I'm going to say it, even though most of you guys probably have a good idea. Support factories cost about the same as their, or they have about the same build power per mass as T1 engineers, I should say. You should be able... Oh, overcharges on the T2 units. That is dirty. Thomas risking his commander at the front line to try to gain an advantage, and it looks like he was relatively successful at that. Broke the line into 2 pieces. We now have a stealth unit, Deceivers, out here. This is what it's going to look like to Thomas. He's got perfect intel, which means Mountain, yep, is power stalling. He's not able to run his stealth field. Not good, not good. T2 PGen going up. That will put him over the top. Well done. Anyway, T2 support factories are much cheaper than HQs. If you build multiple HQs, you are going to have a bad time. It is a huge waste of mass. You don't want to do that thing. But if you build support factories, they're hardier than engineers. They are about the same cost as T1 engineers per build power, and they help with your sim speed and your pathfinding solutions, since there are not all of those T1 engineers taking up real estate. You can also build them around mexes for superior adjacency bonus. Late game eco though, it is not worth it. You are better off with the mass storages around the mechs as opposed to factories. A bit of an engagement there. Red had his units spread out just a little bit, and air was looking sketchy for a moment. I really thought that blue was going to win air, but it would appear, thanks to a mobile flak, that Mountain has won the day in the T1 air fight. He now has control, and he was able to deny the push from Thomas. So right now he is sitting in a very, very good situation. On the bottom side, we do only have 2 air factories still. They are building at a reasonable pace. Quite a bit of assistance right there, but nothing too spectacular. At the back here, we've got 2 air factories, one of them not running, and then the single up there. So at this particular moment in time, Thomas does not have enough interceptors to really deny much. He does have enough to probably save his ACU if there's an attempted snipe. But Mountain is now secure in his air control enough to build T1 bombers. So this is going to, again, get a little dicey for Thomas. He is getting the gun upgrade, I do believe, if I saw correctly in the chat. Let me ping it up here. Yep, upgrade gun. So he is about to have a nasty ACU that should be able to win him the upper hand in this fight. Let's take a count on T2 units once again. There are 26 T2 units now pouring out of support factories for Mountain as well as Thomas. And we're going to take a look on this side, 23. So a very marginal difference. But Red does have more. And then you bring that gun comm into play, potentially overcharging at the greater range. And this is going to get a little dicey for Red. So what do we got going on over here? We have got a T3 factory push. He is gonna go for the Loyalist. That anti-air still doing work. 9 kills on one and 16 kills on the other. Holy cow. That is amazing. So those T1s have definitely paid for themselves. That is also a T3 upgrade. So both of these guys are moving for T3 at the same time. It would appear that there has possibly been a drop. There definitely has been a drop, and there are now Jesters moving in to deal with that Mantis. It is going to get a Mex, good for you, little guy. And then there's an attempted run-by happening on the right-hand side. Thomas trying to slip some units around the back there, be a pain in the buttocks, get a couple mass extractor kills, but there are... This is a good little team of rhinos. There are 3 rhinos versus 3, 6, 8, a good 15 Mantis at the start of this before some of them started dying. And you can see the rhinos are just retreating using their superior HP and range to just decimate that group of T1s. And then 2 more rhinos will come up from the back with a little bit of micro. They will win versus these 3, but then 4 more in the back. This is about to get super sketchy. Those rhinos are going to be able to complete a successful raid. So Thomas has outmaneuvered his opponent, at least in this very, very small portion of the game. There are quite a few Jesters here, actually, and there are more. Is this an air snipe we see forming up? It would appear to be. And there might actually be an air challenge here. Red has not been building interceptors exclusively, so Thomas may have been able to catch up in air production. That is a brilliant stop maneuver. A halfway decent turn. And it would appear, yes, that blue is going to take the air win. This is a setup for a Jester snipe. But look at this. Thomas caught on the wrong side of a half-built factory. He's got 2 loyalists on his commander, and there is a flak between him and Mountain's ACU. He's got to get the overcharges in. How is his power? He's got an overcharge in, but it's taking him so long to regenerate. Got one of the loyalists, just enough T2 units. Boom! The Jesters were moving up. That was an all-in play for Mountain, and he succeeded. Look at that. He lost his left side expansion. He lost his right side expansion. He didn't have enough units in his base to defend this. He had 1 loyalist that was out, and he would have lost a whole lot more power. Lost his T2 PGen. He was in bad shape, but Thomas overextended slightly. slightly with his commander and was not able to keep himself alive. That was down to the wire. Red had the expansions. It's good play, solid play from both these guys. But the power loss and the number of units that were coming out of this side, I think in the end, Mountain would have lost that game pretty quickly had he not gotten that ACU snipe there. Ah, a lovely brick coming out. Nice to see one of those in a 1v1 game as opposed to just massive amounts of loyalists. Alrighty guys, that is the Twin Rivers, trying to brush the rust off on the whole casting procedure because there is actually a tournament happening this Saturday, which should be a couple of days from when I release this cast. I am going to be live casting a 3v3 tournament starting at 10 a.m. Eastern United States time, 1400 GMT. Morax is hosting it. I will be hopefully casting the entire tournament live, at least the one game at a time that I can get to, and I will definitely be doing the final, probably about a 3 to 4 hour stream, so definitely tune in to Twitch. Link will be in the description if you are interested in that. Send me your replays, guys. I am open to starting to cast a few more games now and then. And I hope sincerely that you have enjoyed this one, despite the fact that I probably missed a few things here and there. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.